The night had started out ordinary, the kind of evening you hardly notice as it passes. I had just finished dinner at my sister Emily's home in a quiet neighborhood outside Dallas, Texas. The air was cool, one of those early spring nights where the breeze carried the faint smell of cut grass and the hum of cicadas filled the spaces between conversation. Emily and her husband, James, had gone out to attend a late-night charity event, and I had agreed to stay behind to watch over their 14-year-old son, Michael. Michael was my nephew, and for most of his life, I had seen him as nothing more than that, a boy I babysat when he was little, a kid I spoiled with gifts at Christmas, a teenager I now teased whenever he came to family gatherings. I loved him, of course, but in that distant, ant-like way, never realizing that one night could change the way I looked at him forever. After cleaning up the dinner dishes, I found Michael sprawled out on the living room couch, video game controller in hand, his eyes glued to the television. "You're going to fry your brain if you play that thing all night," I teased, dropping onto the armchair nearby. He grinned without looking up. "Better than frying it on homework." I laughed, shaking my head. Touché. For the next hour, I sat nearby, watching him play and occasionally joining in on the banter. It struck me then how much he had grown. The little boy who used to tug on my sleeve for attention was taller now, his voice deeper, his jokes sharper. There was still a hint of boyish mischief in him, but something about his demeanor felt more mature, as though he was beginning to step into the complicated space between childhood and adulthood. When the game ended, Michael tossed the controller aside and leaned back with a sigh. "Aunt Sarah," he said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" His tone was different, serious, almost hesitant. I straightened in my chair. "Of course. What's on your mind?" He hesitated before speaking, his eyes fixed on the carpet. "Do you think I'm good enough? Like, good enough to be someone? Sometimes I feel like nobody really notices me. Mom and Dad are always so busy, and at school, I'm not the smartest or the most athletic. I just feel invisible." His words caught me off guard. I had expected a question about video games or maybe even a crush at school, but not this. I felt my heart tighten as I looked at him, this boy who carried so much more inside him than anyone realized. "Michael," I said softly, moving to sit beside him on the couch. "You are so much more than you think. You don't have to be the best at everything to matter. You already matter just by being who you are. You're kind, you're thoughtful, and you have a heart that notices things most people miss. That's rare. That's valuable." He blinked rapidly, his lips pressed together as though holding back tears. "You really think so?" I placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing gently. "I know so. Michael, I've watched you grow up. You might not always see yourself clearly, but I do. And I see someone who's going to do great things, not because you're trying to be someone else, but because you're being you." For a moment, he just sat there in silence, then whispered, "Thanks, Aunt Sarah. Nobody really talks to me like that." The room fell quiet, the hum of cicadas outside filling the silence between us. I realized then how much children, even teenagers, long to be seen, truly seen, not for their grades or their achievements, but for the person they were inside. That night, my nephew stopped being just the kid I babysat. He became a young man standing at the threshold of life, searching for answers, needing someone to remind him of his worth. Later, when Emily and James returned, Michael was already asleep in his room. Emily asked me how the evening had gone, and I smiled softly.
"Good," I said.
"Really good." But inside, I carried the weight of Michael's question and the sacred trust he had placed in me by asking it. Over the weeks that followed, I noticed Michael differently. At family dinners, when he stayed quiet, I no longer saw it as shyness. I recognized it as a deep thinker observing the room. When he joked with his cousins, I noticed the way he always made sure no one was left out. And when he helped his mom carry groceries without being asked, I saw a young man growing into responsibility. One evening, a few months later, I got a call from Emily. Her voice was trembling as she told me Michael had been struggling in school, his grades slipping, his confidence sinking even lower. She said she didn't know what to do. Without hesitation, I offered to step in.